it's not just about ramps, although I do love ramps as a wheelchair user.
All right. Maybe take my hat off.
It's less touristy.
Es ist inzwischen Dezember und wir sind seit über 3 Monaten unterwegs. Nachdem wir 3 Wochen lang mit einem Van durch die Nordinsel Neuseelands gefahren sind, haben wir es über Umwege nach Auckland in eine sehr, sehr nette Wege geschafft. Dort können wir zum ersten Mal durchschnaufen und haben so Zeit, uns mit Olivia zu treffen. Olivia arbeitet für das neuseeländische Medienunternehmen vieles und hat ähnlich wie wir einen Podcast zu dem Thema Inklusion und Behinderung gemacht. Wir fahren nach Devonport und nach kurzem Kennenlernen in einem Café suchen wir uns ein ruhiges Plätzchen, um mit ihr das Interview zu führen. Dieses führen wir wie die meisten Interviews auf unserer Reise auf Englisch. Wie immer gibt es aber deutsche Untertitel und für alle, die sich das Interview lieber durchlesen wollen, ein Transkript auf unserer Website.
Got some difficult questions for me? I'm usually the one asking questions, so this is like role reversal.
Well, he studied also journalism.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
So I'm just the wrong person. Yeah.
What are you doing here?
I don't know. I mean, I'm enjoying the view.
You're just here for the ride.
Yeah.
So today we meet with Olivia. Hey, Olivia. You were born in Auckland, right?
Yes, that's correct.
You're also living in Auckland?
Yes, currently.
Currently, so did you live somewhere else than Auckland?
So I grew up in Auckland. When I was 13, my family and I, we actually lived in Malaysia for about half a year, and we did some like voluntary like missionary work at a school for kids with disabilities. So I was 13 when we did that, and then when I was 21, I lived in Finland to study abroad as well.
Yeah. So the reason today why we are meeting with you, Olivia, is that you are a very big advocate for inclusion and disability rights in New Zealand. Is that right?
Yep, no, it's something I'm really passionate about.
So why are you passionate about that?
Well, because I live with a disability myself, so I understand the physical barriers, the systemic barriers, attitudinal barriers that disabled people face. And I feel like I've been able to, because I was born with my disability, so I've been able to adapt as I've learnt to live with my disability. But when I see places where disabled people's rights are upheld and the improvement it makes in their lives, it's pretty amazing. So if every disabled person have that same equity of rights, their lives could also be improved. So, it's little things like access to services and healthcare and funding, which would make a big difference in their life. It's not just about ramps, although I do love ramps as a wheelchair user, but it's about really improving quality of life and having, I guess, equal opportunities and people being able to reach their potential.
Could you just fairly quickly describe what disability you have for our viewers?
Yes, so I was born with a condition called Muskeldystrophie. So it's a genetic condition I've had since birth, and it's muscle weakness. So I used to be able to wear kind of calipers and braces when I was younger and walk around with a walking frame. But at high school I stopped using that because it was just way faster for me to keep up with my friends in a wheelchair. So then from there I use wheelchair full time. In terms of my health and muscle weakness, it's been stable since then. So I use a wheelchair with power assisted wheels to get around. I have a fully adapted car so I can drive around. All these kind of tools help me be independent.
That's my first question regarding the car. So what is the type of support you get from the state, from New Zealand, to rebuild your car? Is there any type of support?
Yes, so the process it took for me to get my car was quite a while because I wanted to apply for funding through the state. So we did, it may have changed since I got my car like more than 10 years ago now, but basically you apply and you have to give enough reason why you need a car. For me it was so I can study and go to work. I mean, I would argue if a disabled person needs an adapted car, they should not have to argue why, because you still contribute to society in other ways that aren't to like earn money. So you get 2 lots of funding, a certain amount for the actual car, and then a certain amount for on top of that, modification. So it's like a few $1,000s, and I still had to pay some money myself. And then, so I have a Toyota Fun Cargo, and there's a ramp that comes out the back. So I have a remote that opens the back door, opens the ramp, and then I wheel inside, lock my chair into the back of the car. There's no passenger seats in the back. And then I transfer into the driver's seat, and I can drive using my legs as well, because I've got enough strength in my legs to drive with my legs. So
Nice.
Regarding the government funds for that, do you think that the New Zealand government is doing enough regarding that specific point for disabled people?
I still feel like there's a lot of systemic barriers which could be removed, that could make life a lot easier for disabled people, like the fact that there are still applications where you have to prove that you're still disabled even if you have a permanent disability, the number of kind of application forms you have to give reason why you should get support or government subsidies or money, and it can feel quite disempowering when you talk about your weaknesses or like how disabled you are just so you can get the funding, whereas no matter what disability or level of need you have, you should feel dignity when you ask for that, but the process isn't very dignified at the moment, I would argue. Often, like when people have to apply for funding and things like that, you have to describe maybe your worst day with your disability so they get a fuller picture.
Yeah.
And that might be a day when you have a lot of fatigue or you're very exhausted, tired, you've got pain. I guess the threshold for what you can or can't spend money on is still quite rigid. Some people can use their support funding to pay for a cleaner, but if you've got a different category of impairment, you may not be able to use that same funding. So there's still a lot of inequalities in the area.
Yeah. What do you think is like the biggest challenge right now in New Zealand in terms of improving the inclusion? What is the biggest barrier you have to overcome?
There's a few. I mean, we don't have any politicians or kind of decision makers, but huge, high-level decision makers in government with disabilities. We're starting to have a few more now, which is great, but we don't have people that kind of are in that system really making some forceful change. Like currently we have a bill going through the House, the government, Parliament, which is about accessibility, but there's not really any teeth in it. So there's no mandating of accessibility, no resolution process. So to me, from the outside, it looks like, just kind of window dressing to what could have a lot more potential to actually making real life difference to disabled people. So you see a lot of kind of like good work or projects starting, but in terms of like the real life impact on disabled people, it appears to come across quite minimal. So I think there are definitely gaps that could be improved in terms of actually like, mandating accessibility and enforcing things like that. You
were born with a disability, so you and your disability are very, very close partners, you could say.
Yeah.
Is it like that you want to be seen as a person or as a disabled person or just something else? As what do you want to be seen?
It really depends. It's kind of interesting because I also have this like really close group of disabled friends, and we're all very on the same page in terms of like being very proud of our disability, and a lot of the work we do in the spaces that we are is very focused around disability advocacy. So it's something that's like we're quite proud of and is part of our identity. And in each of our different areas of the work that we do, we want to make a difference. So it's interesting because I want people to see me as a whole person, but I fully acknowledge that and accept and welcome the fact that disability is a big part of that as well. And I guess, in my job as a journalist working in the disability space, my disability is actually a huge benefit and a strength in the work that I do, because I have access to disabled people that non-disabled people may not have access to.
Yeah.
I'm in these health systems that, non-disabled people, they don't understand what it's like. They can't see through, the political spin or whatever of what politicians are trying to say about disability. So for me, it's something I've definitely had to grow into and accept and actually embrace and see it as a strength. Otherwise, because it's not just helped me in my career, but just personally as a person and as a human.
Yeah.
So earlier, Lovis asked you what the biggest challenge in New Zealand is regarding the topic of inclusion. I would like to ask you what in your opinion, the most important thing is that has to change over the next few years in New Zealand regarding inclusion.
I would love to see something like the New Zealand version of the Americans Disability Act, which is the ADA. And I'm pretty sure in other in Canada and the UK, they've got similar things. I'm not sure about Germany, but
Germany just has the from the UN.
Okay.
Like this Disability Act.
Oh, I mean, there's the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Disabled People. Okay, so in New Zealand we've also signed to that, but it's not legislated or enforced.
Yeah.
So yes, I love that document. I think it's great. If we lived in a world where that was the reality, it would be amazing, but it's not.
Yeah.
The government's always saying we're working towards it. It's, the foundation of a lot of our legislation, but from the people that I talk to or see every day, my own experience, it's not the reality. So I would love to see something like, the ADA, like the New Zealanders Disabilities Act, where it's illegal to discriminate against disabled people, and things like accessibility and inclusion, in schools and the education system, health system, is actually enforced.
Yeah. Have you ever felt really discriminated against you?
Not in a massive way. It probably happens in at micro levels, just if I'm out at a pub or a restaurant with friends and there's no accessible toilet or little things like that, or having to be carried up and down the stairs. Not so much now, because also I think a lot of my friends are because I'm quite vocal about it, a lot of my friends are very aware about it, so they'll check in advance if somewhere is accessible, which I think is good, because a lot of the times when it comes to accessibility and inclusion, the onus is on the disabled person, whereas it should be a shared responsibility for everyone to include everyone, right? One time I remember that I was quite upset about it. I just remember feeling very dismissed in that situation. We were going out for a restaurant, which is a big group of family members, and the place we wanted to go, it was pretty full, and then we asked if we could perhaps move some tables so it would be accessible. And I remember the front of house or whoever, the waiter or the manager of the restaurant, came up to me in a very patronizing way, and just the way she talked to me, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was saying how why don't you want to move the table here because you're in a wheelchair. But I just remember the tone she was talking to me was really patronizing, and I remember being quite upset by that. But often if things are not accessible, it's a structural thing that people kind of don't realize, but it's people's attitudes which can make a much bigger difference.
Talking about attitudes and mindset, what is the most important thing in your opinion for the society to even more accept disabilities in their society, in our society?
I don't know, it's interesting, because when I talk to a lot of friends in my circle, I'm often the first, only disabled person that they know. So just the fact that I exist in their world, I'm educating them and they're becoming more open-minded. I'm not saying everyone should have a disabled friend, because that sounds a bit tokenistic, but I feel like there could be a better job in terms of how disabled people are represented in mainstream media and TV shows and films that aren't tokenistic, but they are really authentic, and just creating space and giving opportunities to disabled people, because in general we have less opportunities because of access issues or barriers.
In your opinion, is it the responsibility of the able-bodied society or of the disabled society, if you can call it like that, to work on inclusion, to work on disability rights? Where lies the responsibility?
I think it is on everyone.
On everyone?
Because you can't really create a policy by non-disabled people that impact disabled people. But disabled people are the smallest population, the smaller population that are most vulnerable to discrimination. So it takes a wider effort from everyone. So I think it is a shared responsibility.
So maybe for all of those watching or listening who are abled, do you have like a nice, neat little trick for them to just be a little bit more inclusive? What is like something that everybody can do on their everyday, a practical little thing?
Study the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Disabled People. Just read that and see what the ideal world of disabled people should look like, and think about how you can apply that in your everyday life, whether it's in your workplace, little things when you see disabled people. If you're a business owner, there's like so many ways you can make your business more inclusive. If you do work in the media, there are ways you can make things more inclusive. I love the UNCRPD.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's
I have one more question.
Yeah, you have one more?
One more.
Go for it. Go for it. Go.
One more question. What is one advice you would give to the 10-year-old boy or girl who's struggling with their disability? Is there one advice you can give to that person?
Yeah, I think that process, when I was younger, is like unlearning ableism, or my internalized ableism, that, society tell you that you have to, you should be able to walk, you should be able to do this, but that's not the reality. I think, something that really helped me was just having other disabled friends. I think I was a bit fearful of that because I didn't want to be seen as disabled because society told me that was wrong.
Yeah.
The more I got involved and active in the disability community, I think it really helped me thrive a lot more and accept who I was.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Would you like to add anything, to say something? A message for our viewers?
No, I think we've covered a lot of good topics and heavy topics that I think are really important. Yeah, read the UNCRPD.
And we will definitely put your podcast, because you did a podcast on the topic of inclusion.
Yeah.
We'll put that on the screen here or somewhere around, and you should definitely check that out. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, and hope you enjoy New Zealand.
Yeah, we will. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
Yeah, I have to check the camera very quickly.
Still running?
Yeah, still running. I forgot to flip it over. Highly professional. Everything here is highly professional.